I'm going to talk to a very, very specific type of player today, just for a minute. If you've ever sat there staring at your army list, your data sheets, or your codex, and you're thinking, why does this just feel harder than it should? Well, then this video is for you. Because I see this constantly. Players are not losing because they're lazy, or because they picked the wrong faction, or because they don't care. You're losing games because the game is just a little bit too noisy for where they are in their development. Armies that have more options, more profiles, more viable choices. Take Space Marines, for example, which is supposed to be a beginner-friendly army, but then you look at how many choices and options you have. Well, instead of helping, it can actually slow your learning down because mistakes get buried when you play this army. Wins might feel accidental. Losses don't really teach you very much. Are you running the correct attachment? Should you be taking Blade Guard Veterans? Should you be taking Sword Bros? Should you be taking Space Wolves? Should you be taking whatever? It's a plethora of options that players who are newer to the game might not be prepared to handle. Well, then someone's going to come along and they're going to tell you, just stick with one army. Just stick with that one army and you're going to get so much better. And that advice, well, it sounds right. It sounds very, very good. But for a lot of players, it's exactly what's going to be keeping them stuck. Shocking. So in this video, I'm going to explain why simplifying this game oftentimes will make players improve significantly faster. Why complexity at the wrong time is going to hurt more than it helps, and how to tell whether your army is actually teaching you the game or if it's just overwhelming you with choices and potentially even holding you back. This isn't about quitting an army. This isn't about saying that complex armies aren't good in the game. This video is about how to build skill in the correct order. You do not try to teach someone calculus until they've already learned algebra. It's that simple. So if you want clearer games, if you want cleaner decisions, and you want progress that actually carries forward, just stick with me through this video. It's going to be awesome for you. So let's start off. We're going to be talking about the real freaking problem. Noise hides learning. It's one of the core issues that most players never really identify. Complexity does not build skill. Feedback does. When you have too many units, too many overlapping rules, too many technically viable options, something very, very dangerous actually starts to happen in this game. You stop getting clean feedback from the actual game. You lose a unit and you're not really sure why. Did the dice just screw you? Was it my positioning? Did my opponent have a stratagem I didn't know about? You win a game and you're really not sure what mattered. Did I get lucky with the dice? Did I actually outplay my opponent? Did they make a mistake? You don't know what it was that actually led to the win or to the loss for that matter. And so when you get feedback that becomes unclear, your learning is actually going to be slowing down. And this is why players will say things like, I've been playing this army for a year and I still don't feel solid. It's not because they're bad. It's actually because their army is creating decision noise is the way I'm going to phrase it. If everything feels defensible, like every single aspect of your army, oh, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, well, then nothing's really going to feel particularly teachable. And if you've ever walked away from a loss and thought, I don't even know what I should have done differently, well, don't tune out, because that feeling is the entire point of this video. This video actually came about because one of my members of my beautiful Discord, thank you so much for supporting the channel, by the way, and you can support the channel as well if you just join using the link in the description down below. You can either become a YouTube member or a Coffee member if you want to hop in the most helpful Discord community in the world. Anyway, he came in and he had been playing Space Wolves for almost a year and he just wasn't really making all that progress. And recently he's really fallen in love with Chaos Knights and he realizes, oh wait, there's just less decisions to make in the game. And some of the people who are giving him feedback were trying to tell him, hey, listen, if you just stick with Space Wolves, you will figure it out. But the reality is it's just a little too complicated. He's not dumb. It's not that he can't like filter through it. It's just that his learning style needs him to have a more straightforward game plan. So I've actually counseled him to start the Chaos Knights because it is a simpler game plan. Simpler does not mean easier, mind you. Listen, let me prove it to you, okay? Deadlifting 500 kilos is like the easiest freaking thing in the world. 1,100 freedom units for my American friends. Is the simplest thing in the world. But there's only about 3 people alive who can actually do it, so it ain't easy. It's actually unreasonably difficult, but it's about the simplest thing you could possibly think about. You just literally bed down, pick up the bar, and stand up. How could it get simpler? But there's 3 people alive who could do it, which means it's about like almost impossible when it comes to difficulty. Likewise, in Warhammer 40,000, when we start talking about complexity and simplicity, a simpler army doesn't necessarily mean it's an easier army. It just means that it's simpler. And that's one of the things that we want to know when it comes to actually learning this game. All right, so why do simpler systems just teach the game a lot better? Let's just figure this one out now. Well, when you reduce options, a few things are going to happen absolutely immediately. Fewer choices mean clearer cause and effect. Clearer cause and effect means that your mistakes are going to become more obvious. Obvious mistakes, much more easy to correct. Let's say, going with our example of the Space Wolves going onto a Chaos Knights, that Knight Despoiler, you move it out a little bit too far, and your opponent is able to make the charge where otherwise he wouldn't have been able to make the charge because you would have positioned a little bit further backwards. Well, you know for a fact that the reason why he made that charge is because you moved too close. And then you can realize that now that you've lost that one piece, you don't have enough firepower to beat the rest of his army, which means you immediately lose. So you lose because you know that model died too early. There's no other factors that really come out. You don't really care about any other factors. It was like, oh, I was standing in a position, allowed my opponent to kill my model, I lost it too early, I didn't have the firepower to shoot my way out, I lost the game. Fewer choices mean clearer cause and effect. I'm just going to repeat this, okay? Clearer cause and effect means mistakes are obvious. Obvious mistakes are easy to correct. That's not dumbing the game down. It's really just tightening your feedback loop. I saw this firsthand with this player, so there it is. I just gave you the example from the Discord, like I said. Well, now I'm almost positive that we're going to see making his learning a lot more visible, and I've seen it time and time and again with some of my clients. I've had clients who have come in with these hyper-complex armies. We put them on a simpler army. They become better at Warhammer. Once fundamentals become solid for Warhammer, then complexity becomes really, really interesting instead of super, super stressful. This is how skill actually develops. You don't, like I said earlier, you don't throw someone into calculus to teach them arithmetic, all right? So people always ask me all the time, or back when Custodes were super, super strong and orcs were not doing well, they were asking me, how the heck can you beat Custodes with orcs? Well, the reality is that because I learned all of my core mechanics in a much simpler frame, because I actually learned Warhammer based off of Custodes, which is a simpler army, but I learned all my pylons, I learned all my consolidates, I learned all of these little details exceptionally well, that when I went to a more complicated army, such as the orcs, since I had all those fundamentals super, super strong, I was able to win in matchups where people would otherwise be saying that it was hopeless. But I had this basics down because I played a simple army to learn the basics before I went to a more complicated army. It's that simple. And if your first reaction right now is going to be, hey, I just need to avoid hard armies, that's not the case, so stay with me, because that's not the takeaway. Stick around for this next freaking slide. All right, so let's talk about the big problem. Why are people resisting this concept of simplifying their armies? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First off, people have egos. Simplifying feels like admitting you're not ready. But dude, whatever. Secondly, sunk cost fallacy. You've invested time, money, and energy, so changing course feels like it's a failure, which is just such a terrible, terrible way to frame things, but it is the way that we frame things as human beings. If something's not working for you, pivot. If you're not making progress at your job at life, and you know that, oh, I could plug in another 20 hours a week and I'm still not going to make any progress, go work for someone else. Get a new job, man. Like, this is just the way it works in life. Sunk cost fallacy is when people think that they've invested so much into something that it would be a waste if they went to a new opportunity, even if that new opportunity is way better. It's true for life. It's true for Warhammer. Third, social pressure. Somewhere along the way, just stick with one army, which is actually sounds like reasonable advice, has turned into a moral rule instead of just learning better strategy. When I do coaching matches with clients, I pretty much exclusively see people losing games from what I call Warhammer mistakes, just good Warhammer mistakes. It's almost never mistakes that people make with the army specific. People aren't forgetting to do their Blessings of Corns rolls. People aren't forgetting their unique stratagems. I mean, it happens occasionally. But people are losing games because they're making bad Warhammer mistakes. When you have a simpler army, you can learn Warhammer better. So here's the truth that most people won't say. Repeating confusion actually does not create mastery. Mastery comes from repeating intent correctly. If your army makes it hard to understand why you're winning or losing, loyalty to a army is not going to be fixing that. So in a second, I'm going to give you a simple test you can use to decide whether staying or switching actually helps your improvement, and it's got nothing to do with your factions. So don't worry about factions here. All right, so what is this freaking test? Let's talk about it. Here's a framework. I want you to use this. Ask these questions honestly, okay? Number 1, can I explain how my army wins games in, call it 1 paragraph? 2, after a loss, do I usually know why I lost, or do I just feel overwhelmed? Do you know the pivot point? Do you know what decision led to this? Question number 3, am I adjusting decisions during games or just swapping units between games? If you can't answer these questions cleanly, staying loyal to your army is not going to magically create clarity. Here is how our progression is actually going to work. And this is the actual progression model that I want you guys to start utilizing. Trust me, it's going to help a bunch. Phase 1, clarity. Learn fundamentals in a low noise environment. When you have less decisions to make in certain aspects of the game, you're going to learn the fundamentals and the rules of the game much better. This is also great advice, especially since we're going into like 11th edition soon, where we're going to have to relearn certain mechanics. Phase 2, pressure. Test the fundamentals that you've learned against strong opponents. Make sure that you're doing the fundamentals correctly and make sure that they carry forward through skill. And then phase number 3, complexity. Now that we have clarity, now that we have developed our fundamentals, let's add layers once understanding already exists. Complex armies are not for learning the basics of the game. If you're a brand new player and you're trying to master Eldar or Admech, you're screwed, dude. Don't do it. It's a bad first army to play. They're great armies, but they're bad first armies to play. Therefore, expressing mastery, not learning basics. So guys, in closing, here's the final takeaways. Simplifying the game is not lowering your skill ceiling, it's lowering the noise floor. If switching systems is going to help you think more clearly, make better decisions, and understand your losses, you're not regressing, you're actually building a foundation. You are not obligated to suffer for the sake of improvement. You're obligated to learn. And that distinction is what's going to separate players who plateau from players who actually get better in Warhammer 40,000. So, to end the video, I have an honest question for you guys. Does your army help you understand why you win and lose? Or does it just give you more options to get lost in? And with that, I'm going to take off for the day, and I hope you all have an incredible day. Happy crumping. Bye-bye.